Is there any great playwright whose work has never tempted you at all?
Brecht.
Why not Brecht?
Loathsome, vulgar, petty, little, nothing.
Large, poetic, universal, everything.
That's what you say.
Burton's sparring partner was, of course, Kenneth Tynan. Not one of the famous and great actors that spoke on these programs was a stranger to disaster. For every triumph, there was a humiliation. We'll give the last couple of words to Noel Coward on how to flop gracefully, and to Lord Olivier on the sweet smell of success. But Richard Burton's answer was to go out there fists flying.
Quite clearly, I do feel that on the stage it's virtually every man for himself. I don't think anybody wants to help you particularly, even despite the agonies of a first night and the nervousness and so on. You really have to look after yourself. And I think that particular loneliness, solitude, the idea of carrying on your own private room is not particularly unique to actors, that they all have it. I have it perhaps, or sometimes have it, a little more than most. When I go out there on the stage, I'm battling the world. I have to beat the world. I have to be the best as far as I can make it.
You have had your failures, really, haven't you?
Oh, yes. Booed off the stage. Utmost enthusiasm.
How do you face that?
And Sirocco.
Yeah.
Sirocco was splendid, because that was a real rouser. It wasn't very good to start with. And the gallery was out to make trouble, which they succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. And at the end, they were booing and screaming. My mother, who was slightly deaf, thought they were cheering, and I had to explain, no dear. I then went whizzing to the pastor, and Basil Dean also. Basil Dean never had the courage to go to his opening night, so he'd been away somewhere having dinner. And he had all this noise going on, thought it was tremendous, so he was ringing the curtain up and down. So I said, listen, Basil, it's terrible. It's an absolute shambles. Let me on. Because I thought, well, then we can get a focal point for the booing. Because I knew I was the one they were after. So I went on and didn't look at the audience at all. I turned my behind to them and shook hands with Ivor and kissed Bunny Doble, and then turned and did the most irritating thing in the world. And stood practically, happily crucified, and refused to let the curtain come down. I thought, I wonder how long they can go on without their larynxes going. And they booed, and they booed, and they booed, and sure enough, it finally died away because they got tired. Then, unfortunately, somebody shouted for Frances Doble, and she stepped forward and said, "This is the happiest evening of my life." So then I broke up, and that was more booing. It was lovely.
I read a few notices next morning, stayed up till 3, of course, drank a little bit too much, and my next performance was the next day matinee, to which I was all too ill prepared. And there was something in the atmosphere. There was something, people talk, there is a phrase, the sweet smell of success. And I can only tell you, I've had 2 experiences of that, and it just smells like Brighton and oyster bars and things like that. As I walked onto the stage, I felt this thing. I felt for the first time that the critics had approved, that the public had approved, and they'd created a kind of grapevine, and that particular audience had felt impelled to come to see me. And it was an overwhelming feeling, a head-reeling feeling. And it went straight to my head. And I felt the feeling I'd never felt before, this complete confidence. I felt, if you like, which is necessary for an actor to feel finally, I felt a little power of hypnotism. I felt that I had them. And it went to my head, as I said, to such an extent that I didn't even bother to put on the limp. I thought, I've got them anyway.